Hi, everybody. I had someone make a comment that he was having some vision issues. And so I wanted to make a meditation just in the area of listening. So, just in this moment, let's just start with eyes closed. And it will probably be best for you to sit up because it's so easy to sleep when attention opens. Part of that is because when we relax the way attention is being paid, then our brain waves go from a beta brainwave state to a very smooth state, mimicking what happens right before there is sleep. And so it's very easy to induce a sleep state. So if you want the benefits, maybe just try sitting up. You don't need any postures or anything like that because this work is effortless. But if you if you go to sleep, well, I guess you can always wake up and do it again. So allow the eyes to close. And just in this moment, notice the sounds that are here. Now, were you noticing all of those sounds before I asked you to notice what's here? Such a simple question, but so profound. What else is here? Just by asking that and then listening, do you feel how the lens that you're listening out of just relaxed so that you could hear, you could answer the question in direct experience, not through some thought or concept, but in actual direct experience. So if there's ever a time where the sound of thoughts sounds like they're the only thing that's here and they're spinning fast because attention loves speed. Then it will go on to what's moving rather than what's still. But opening attention is opening into the stillness that contains everything, that contains all the movement. So, attention may have been on the sound of my voice or even the sound of the voices of thinking. But just when I ask the question, or if you ask the question of yourself, what other sounds are here? It's like a net almost, an invisible net that opens, or a camera lens. And it reaches out, it relaxes. We're so habituated to having the lens narrowed to perceive one sound at the exclusion of all the others. There's always a bunch of sounds happening, except maybe in the middle of the night. Well, we don't notice them. So, just in this moment, I'm going to ask you to notice and see what that's like to answer the question experientially, to let that lens reach out, relax in every direction. Now, is it possible to notice that the sound of my voice, or even the sound of the voices of thought, are arising and then disappearing, arising, disappearing. Into what? Can you hear the silence? Now, the silence may hold other sounds as well, and we're so habituated to pay attention to sound. So go right to where a sound is. If it feels like there's no silence, go right to the sound of my voice, and just in this little piece of the moment, with this sound, notice that in between the sentences being spoken, there's a gap. And right where the voice was now, when the voice disappears, there's the absence of sound. We could call it quiet. We could call it silence. We could call it soundlessness. What is it like? This body took a breath. The body of the dog took a breath when I asked that question. Oh, attention narrows onto sound all day long. What's it like to relax it into silence? And remember, if it's difficult to hear the silence, just focus on one sound that's coming and going. And listen to the one sound as it arises and disappears. And it's what all sounds are doing, actually. Almost like a symphony of now. Each little sound, even the sound of the voice of a thought, an instrument, arising, disappearing. And is it possible to notice that we're not in control of the sound? There's no uh, rehearsing here as to what sentence is going to arise out of this mouth. Do we actually know what the next thought will be? And is the sound of a voice of thought any different than the sound of this voice? It may be saying something different, but isn't it just a voice arising, disappearing? In the silent auditorium of now, of here. What happens to the speed of thinking. When silence is noticed. Now I'd like you to reach out in this moment into the auditorium. It really has no walls, but it's what's holding the little instruments of all the sounds. And is it possible to notice how much silence is there as compared to how much sound? And does the silence between the sound of these words, is it limited to the sound of these words in this location, or does it reach out and hold all sound as far as you could imagine? But does the silence end when you think of space, infinite? Wouldn't it be the same silence that stars and planets and galaxies are suspended in? And it's holding not only the planets, the galaxies, the stars, but it's holding the sound of this voice. It's holding the sound of the voices of thought. Look how much, or listen how much more silence there is than sounds. And doesn't it take a relaxing of the way that you normally listen to entertain the vastness of the silence? And wouldn't you also say there's a quality of listening, a quality of hearing? And in this moment, can you notice that listening is silent? We often mistake ourselves for the voices that claim to be us. But those voices come and go in the listening, and the silent listening that extends as far as you can imagine. Perhaps there's a part of you that can listen everywhere. We often think it's ears that hear, but if the body was put in a deprivation tank, wouldn't the sound of the voices of thinking still be heard. When the body disappears in the sleep state, when the body disappears in sleep, are not the voices in dreams still heard? What is it like to notice this silent listening? What is it like to realize you are not the thoughts? You're not the voices of thought that arise and disappear. You're the silence that's listening to those thoughts. It's only when we narrow the lens that we're listening out of do we forget. A thought leaves. I'm still here listening. But we can't notice that until the voices become sentences, and the sentences have gaps that we can recognize. The listening. And in this silence, in this peaceful listening, does that listening in your experience, has it ever not been here, the ability to listen? The silence that holds all sounds, all time. So if it's always been here, isn't that the stability that we long for? Something that doesn't change. In our mistaken identity, we trust change. We put our faith in something that comes and goes. But what if we shift our devotion and is not devotion equal to attention? What if we shift our attention onto that which doesn't change, steadfast, the alwaysness of this moment? Can you find any harm in the silent space of listening? Is the sound ever hurt by another sound? Is the silence ever hurt or threatened by any of the sounds that arise within it? Well, you see, true safety, true stability lies in that which cannot be seen, but can be noticed nonetheless. When the lens of attention is subsumed into the whole moment. And in this stillness, rest. And if attention narrows, as it is wont to do, especially when you're first starting this work, look how effortless it is to say, wait, what other sounds are here? And what are they happening in? There it is. There's the silence that's always here. Ah, oh, good. And the more the lens relaxes, the less credibility and power thought has to seem true. Rest now in the still, silent space. Rest now in the still. Rest now in the still, silent vastness of changeless listening. Be well.